Important questions piling up after the raid at former President Donald Trump's Florida home. Growing calls for transparency over exactly what the FBI took from Mar-a-Lago. I'm Harris Faulkner. You were in the Faulkner Focus. A source telling Fox News some of the boxes agents walked out with contain information covered by attorney-client privilege. Republicans with this reaction.
We have a number of concerns, but one is whether or not the raid itself was justified. We have this list from the FBI, but we don't have conclusive as to whether or not this actually is classified material.
It was an unprecedented action that needs to be supported by unprecedented justification.
I think it would be good for the Justice Department to release some of the information about the extraordinary steps or the steps they did take to try to cooperate with the former president.
We're also learning from our sources the DOJ does not want a review of the raid. That's almost laughable. The former commander-in-chief calls them corrupt and says the raid is all part of their played-out attempts to undermine him. The White House is, of course, denying any political motivations.
This is about the American people and doing what is right for the American people. The Department of Justice, when it comes to law enforcement, is independent. This is what we believe, and this is what the president has said. This is not about politicizing anything.
And the former president himself was talking with Fox this morning and said he's willing to do whatever possible to help the nation after the raid, saying the temperature has to be brought down. In focus now, Matt Whitaker, acting Attorney General under President Trump. Great to see you today. Let's talk about that temperature. Let's speak directly to the former president's words and where we are and what the nation needs to know.
Well, it's good to be with you today, Harris, and the president's absolutely right. We need to lower the temperature across our country. Obviously, political violence is never appropriate, but I want to remind everyone that, really the FBI's extraordinary action here, unprecedented, never happened before in American history, is really what raised the temperature in the first place. And I think many people, including myself, need to talk about how we need to lower the temperature. But I think transparency is what's going to lower the temperature. We need to understand how is the FBI going to process and how is the Department of Justice legally going to analyze things that could be attorney-client privilege, things that could have maybe been declassified, and ultimately, what were the mitigating steps so that when they executed a search warrant, that was the least intrusive means that they had available to them. There's more questions today probably than there has been in the last week, Harris.
Well, we have more information, and the information didn't do anything but open up more questions because we didn't get all of really what we needed to know. So my question then is, was it explosive action that they took? Was it over-the-line action that they took in concert with what you've read so far? Like, what more do we really need?
Yeah. Well, Harris, here's the way I analyze this. If you look at the precedent for these types of investigations, obviously we could talk Hillary Clinton, no search warrant was executed. Sandy Berger, General Petraeus. In previous examples of this type of investigation, search warrants were not executed. And the Department of Justice policies is to have the least intrusive means. And so I want to really understand the negotiations leading up to this. It's 18 months since the president had left office. It was 2 months since, in June when they allegedly last met on this topic. Why a search warrant now? And it just, again, all the facts that I have that are publicly available suggest actually that the Department of Justice should have negotiated and should have done another subpoena and had other options. And if I was Attorney General, I think the decision to raid a former president's home is the most grave decision that could be made. And I just don't see the exigent circumstances that require this step from a law enforcement perspective.
Well, look, I'll just hit this quickly and move on. If nobody took into account that there might be things that had attorney-client privilege, it just seems sloppy. Your quick reaction, we'll move on.
Yeah, the team wasn't equipped. FBI agents can't tell the difference between attorney-client privilege and anything else they're looking for. Obviously, they need to set up a taint team. They need somebody to look at this before the investigation gets it. Because if you think about what could be in those documents, it could be legal strategies relating to his January 6th potential defense. It could be defenses related to this And quite frankly, all of the other litigation and investigations going on. I mean, Donald Trump for 6 years has had to fight all this, so there could be a lot of attorney-client privilege material in those boxes.
All right, a new op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled "The Payback for Mar-a-Lago Will Be Brutal." Here's a quote from it. Mr. Garland's raid has made even the highest political figures fair prosecutorial game. And the media's new standard is that the department can't be questioned as it goes around ensuring no one is above the law. Let's see how that holds when a future Republican DOJ starts raiding the homes of Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Eric Holder, James Comey, and John Brennan. What goes around always comes around. What went around this week will come around hard. And this op-ed in the New York Post with the pithy title, "Merrick Garland's Raid of Trump's Mar-a-Lago is a Farce of Law." What's your reaction to all of it?
Well, Harris, this is something I take very seriously, and obviously the Department of Justice can never be used as a political instrument to punish your opponents. But a lot of Americans, and we can't live in a country where a lot of Americans feel that this is exactly what's being done. I don't think we can get into an escalation, as the Wall Street Journal and Kim point out in the op-ed, but at the same time, I know, as someone that's been at the Department of Justice over 7.5 years in 2 different administrations, that we used to take very seriously these criticisms, and obviously we had to answer through our actions primarily, but you know, the Attorney General has a platform where he can explain more so than he did last week. I thought that his press conference was very disappointing. He can explain in cases like this the decisions that are made, how things are mitigated like attorney-client privilege, and how the defense of declassification and the standing order that the president had and has been reported is going to be handled. And I just, you know, again, I say there are a lot more questions that could have been answered by Merrick Garland without talking about the specifics of this case.
And that's the point. He didn't have to give away everything. No one anticipated that. Just the stuff that says it won't happen to everybody or anybody indiscriminately. Right. 85 days, though, out from a midterm election. They are going to have to talk about whether or not they can prove that's not political. Who knows? We'll see what they say. Matthew Whitaker, thank you. Always great to have you in focus.
Great to see you, Harris.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.